The administration hits the magic number in the Senate and the deal is done. The private option is now Arkansas Works. Will it? The state's largest school district is still in state hands, but new hands with new controversy. And a new low for unemployment in Arkansas. All of that and more in Arkansas Week. First, a Newsmaker interview in a moment.
Arkansas Week is made possible in part by the Arkansas Times, keeping you informed by covering people, events, and politics in Arkansas. By FM 89, KUAR in Little Rock, with in-depth news reporting, analysis, and discussion each weekday.
This is Arkansas Week.
Hello again, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us for Arkansas Week. It has been a very good week for the Hutchinson administration and its version of the expansion of the Medicaid program. We'll get to our roundtable in just a moment. But first, the President pro tempore of the Arkansas Senate, the Honorable Jonathan Dismang, Republican of BB. Thanks very much, Senator, for being with us.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Well, it was a big score for the administration. The strategy of a hostile amendment with the announced vow of a line item veto to continue the program. Most people seem to believe that it is easily, readily, legally defensible. Was there not another way?
I think that if there was the other way, it was going to be the forcing of the 2 additional votes. This seemed like a much cleaner path to go down.
Cleaner?
In a way.
More certainly,
it allowed,
cleaner.
Well, cleaner in the sense that the governor and I think the legislature as a whole was very open and transparent about the process and what the actual outcome was going to be. In a way, what we did was fast forward the process. In order to not spend those dollars on the expanded population, there would have to have been special language injected into the bill regardless. And so the question became, what happens after the ejection of that special language? And I think you got to the conclusion pretty quickly that the governor would have his ability to utilize that line item veto. It was a matter of, does that happen now, or does that happen, towards the end of session, or even after we get out of session and we leave without a Medicaid appropriation or medical services appropriation. So we fast forward to that process. It's at this point we have a conclusion with the House vote, and it'll be going to the governor's desk.
Well, the private option is now Arkansas Works.
Right.
The administration owns it. It already owned it because it continued it in the first year of Mr. Hutchinson, first fiscal of Mr. Hutchinson's administration. Now it's really his. And I think it's fair to say the parties, as it wasn't before. What's next for it?
Well, I think, number one, it was never thought to be a program that was going to be stagnant or set in place and not evolve. And so I think right now we've done the best we can with this administration. We'll be looking to see what the next administration looks like, the leadership there in Washington is what I mean, and see if there's additional ways that we can make this program more Arkansas specific. But the good thing, and one of the things that I think we should commend the governor on, and Senator Hendren and others that led the charge, what we were ultimately talking about was pulling $5 billion over 5 years out of Arkansas's healthcare economy. And that is if we did not do anything with the expansion due to the ACA. By implementing this program, again, which does have some very Arkansas specific tweaks, we're actually going to bring in an additional $5 billion over that 5-year period into the Arkansas economy.
Is it still, though, essentially, with the tweaks, it's still pretty much as it was enacted, is it not?
I think the work requirements are important and a very good step. We're going to have some things in place because of that.
Cosmetic, it's critical.
Right.
Let me just ask you,
Right.
By the way, to our audience, we did invite some members who were hostile to the program to appear, and all were obligated elsewhere. But let me ask in their behalf, cosmetic, the tweaks, purely cosmetic, they argue. Your response?
I think it depends on your perspective. You had, for instance, I'll take Senator Hendren, who proposed Arkansas Works and was the sponsor of that bill. He was originally opposed to the private option. I think that the adjustments that were made, clearly in his view, were very real. And again, I think that works package and the fact that you're trying to create that ladder, get people off of the program. This is a safety net they're allowed to have. but not requiring them, but allowing them to have those opportunities to improve their lives. That was very valuable to him and a number of other members.
Well, you know, Mr. Hendren was initially an arch critic in interviews with me and others with the program, but as several other members have come around to your point of view, you helped design this thing. Politically, though, is it now secure?
I think, I mean, there's always going to be a debate. It's the Affordable Care Act. That's a very contentious issue, you know, in the state and around the country. So do I think that the debate's going to be over? No. But I think we've done a lot here in this state, again, to take that program, take those mandates from the feds, take the shortcomings of the program, you know, from the feds, and do things that allow us to really work it in an Arkansas way, and that's through this the private option, which is now involved in Arkansas Works.
Well, I hate to use the lipstick metaphor, but again, in behalf of the critics of the program, Obamacare. We don't care what you call it, private option, Arkansas Works, it's still Obamacare. And they do have a point. It's all money from the Affordable Care Act. Have you sensed, sir, a change not only in your district but statewide in the politics of the situation, acceptance on the part of the public?
I think in a way the governor...
And understanding, maybe.
I think there is some more understanding. It's something that's obviously, you know, garnered a lot of attention in the press, for and against, and I think that helps bring some awareness to the program, the consequences of doing something versus doing nothing. And so, I mean, would I say that there's full acceptance by the public about it? No, but at the same time, and I think we've done a very good job through the administration, the governor has, of putting the facts out there about the program, and that's what we need to look at when we're making decisions, are facts. And I think it's good that we've been able to present those to the public.
Well, again, adversarial. Are you a rhino? You and the other advocates, the Republican side, are you a Republican in name only?
No, sir.
Do you feel less conservative today than you did?
No, I don't. I mean, no, we have to deal with what comes down from the federal level. We may or may not like it, but that's reality. And I think we have an obligation in this state to take what happens at the federal level and make sure that it works best for our citizens and our constituents. That's what this is, and I don't think that changes our label of, you know, being conservative or moderate or liberal. I think, you know, we are who we are, and I think this is just, you know, the path that we needed to take. I would say that this is a much more conservative policy than just taking Medicaid dollars in whole and utilizing the traditional fee-for-service program. Again, I think it has very good conservative reforms in that we're going to be utilizing those workforce opportunities that are going to be available. And again, I think ultimately it's a you know, the best conservative policy we can have with our situation. Left
hanging in the debate over the past several weeks, put on the back burner anyway, the matter of managed care. Mm-hmm. Where are you and your conference and the administration, if you care to speak for it, on that issue?
Yeah, and no, I do not want to speak for the administration, but I'll say that those conversations are still ongoing. You know, the plan going into the last special session was to look at specifically the behavioral health population and the DD population. You know, we hit some road bumps with that. There was an alternative proposal that was made through something called Diamond Care that, you know, at this point has a lot of holes left to be answered as far as how that program would actually be implemented. Personally, I would tell you that I do believe that we need to have some level of managed care, in particular with the behavioral health population, and we're going to continue to look at that and try to get an agreement. I think one thing that the legislature, the public, the providers, all those involved have to understand with managed care is it's a lot less about the legislation that we're going to pass. What's going to really matter is that RFP and how we require those companies, if they do operate in Arkansas, how they're going to operate. And that's where, you know, that's the reality, I think, and that's where we need to be focusing on is the RFP and what that's going to look like.
How quickly, well, the debate's ongoing, as you know, but how quickly would we see legislative action on that?
I think,
do you have a timeline in mind?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we would like to realize those savings. The Stevens Group, which was hired by the legislative body to come in and take a look at our Medicaid program, believes there are significant savings to be achieved in our Medicaid system. We would like to achieve those savings right now. If we do nothing in the state of Arkansas, because we're improving as a state, our actual share of expenditures are going to go up. So we're going to be spending more state dollars. That's real, and that's something that we take into consideration and something that we're going to have to deal with, and we need to have those savings in place.
Finally, if you've got sine die in sight on this session anyway, right around the corner is another. Mm-hmm. Mr. Hutchinson had made clear that without Arkansas Works, his highway program, his proposals anyway, would just be scuttled. Where do we stand on that highway session now? Is any significant
Yeah, I think so. We will, the tentative plan, and of course that could always change, is to start that session very quickly after we finish this physical session. There may be a couple of other small issues that are going to be driven by the legislators, but again, we're going to require that they get an agreement on whatever other matters may bring up before we enter into that session.
And we have to leave it there because we're out of time. Senator, thank you very much
sir.
for being with us.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll have our roundtable in just a moment. And here we are back with the gang, including Jacob Kaufman of KUAR Public Radio News in Central Arkansas, Steve Bronner, an independent journalist, as is Ernie Dumas, an independent and columnist for Arkansas Times. These things always look easier in the moments after passage, when you get one through that's as rough as the one that appeared to be. It looks easy, but it was tense for a while, Steve.
It's been tense for months, but it got through. We just got back from the Arkansas House passing this 76 votes, one more than it needed. The Senate passed it with exactly what it needed, 27 votes. The governor is set to veto it here in a few minutes and give a press conference. So it has been a crazy few weeks, but you know the session is only about a week old, and for all practical purposes, it's done. I sat through the Joint Budget Committee this morning. It was very perfunctory. It was 3/4 full. One of the legislators brought his daughter. Really, it has the look of we have done the important thing, and now it's just a matter of kind of passing through the bills and we're done.
In fact, Ernie, it was the important. This was the budget, the Arkansas Works.
It was. This is everything hinged on this. If they failed to pass the continuation of the Medicaid expansion, it would have wrecked the state budget. We would have pulled, $5 billion over the next few years out of the Arkansas economy, which would wreak havoc in many places besides the state budget. It would have left the whole state budget in chaos. They would have had to come back and change virtually every single state appropriation of general revenues to reflect some cuts to try to make up for the loss of the federal money for Medicaid and the other aspects of the impact of that program on the state budget. So yes, it was absolutely critical. And the governor or whoever came up with this little artful scheme, the legislature and the governor get no credit, no style points, I think, out of this thing because of this clever device that's never been used before, where you insert something into the bill to do one thing with the understanding you're going to do exactly the opposite. The governor puts it in there and tells everybody, I'm putting this in there so you can get a vote for your constituents, those of them who want you to kill the Obamacare. But yet we're going to come back and undo it all. So it was clever, but never, it got the job done.
Yeah.
And so whoever thought it up deserves some credit. And I don't know whether that was the governor or somebody on your staff or whether it was some people in the legislature. Maybe these gentlemen know who was the author of that scheme.
Jacob, you want to take a swing at that? I mean,
well, I've heard Clark Tucker being bandied about. Representative Greg Leding said he helped craft this latest version of the amendment. If you think back to last week, their original scheme was to remove the funding provision from the overall Medicaid budget. It's all wrapped in it. And this week they decided to have the program essentially end at the end of this year, 2016, instead of 2021, which was in the original legislation. And Democrats supposedly worked with the governor's office over this course of this 4-day recess to help make it more legally sound. Clark Tucker is a lawyer, at least. I saw the governor talk to him shortly before the Senate vote, which had 0 votes to spare. They're clearly working with legislators on this, at least.
yeah.
One other thing that needs to be said about it was that he used the line item veto authority. Under the governors had the authority since 1874 when they adopted the Constitution. He's had the authority to veto a line item out of an appropriation bill, and the idea was you can actually just physically draw a pencil through a line item. It might say 2 deputy chancellors for the University of Arkansas, court reporter, whatever, 2 deputy chancellors, $150,000, and the governor could just draw a line through that and veto that line. That's fairly unusual. Some states have it. President Clinton tried to get that authority in Congress when he went to Washington. But it did not anticipate that you could just delete a whole sentence or a section or a paragraph or something that changes the law. The idea was you could veto an appropriation. But it doesn't say line item, it says an item, a distinct item is what the Constitution says. So there's considerable question about whether the governor has the authority to do what he did. But I think what they're going to do, just to be sure, somebody can come along after the session, or tomorrow, I guess, and file a lawsuit challenging the governor's authority if they could find a plaintiff that would give them standing to sue. But in order to forestall that, I think they're going to come back at a special session next month and have some language in a non-appropriation bill that would do the same thing. Move the end date, the lapse date for the Medicaid expansion until the end of next fiscal year. So they can do that with a simple majority, and if they do that and it's signed into law, well, presumably that would nullify any standing anybody had to file a suit, because it would be moot.
Yeah.
Whether if you ruled the thing unconstitutional wouldn't make any difference. So they've got it covered, I think, all the way around on it.
A little tangled, but it
Yeah.
seems to have gotten the job done.
Nobody, I think, outside the legislature and the governor's office and maybe us here understand what in the world they did, but it's effective.
Well, the opposition certainly, they made two major points in their speeches. One was, of course, they don't like this because it's tied to the Affordable Care Act, so any kind of increase in the federal debt associated with that they don't like. But the other one, and some people who support Arkansas Works made this point, that because of this procedure is untested or maybe novel or a creative use of existing law, that it's
Weird
a precedent.
deal, I think we called it here last week.
It was a weird trick.
Weird trick, okay.
And Senator Hendren spent a lot of time this week explaining that it's not a trick. This has been not only telegraphed, but deliberately stated by the governor everywhere. This is what we're going to do.
Yeah, it could not be more transparent.
No,
the governor
no, I mean,
announced
it
at the
was-
first the purpose what they were going to do, and the purpose of it was so that everybody would know that every legislator would know what he was doing, and his constituents out there, if they read the newspaper or watch Arkansas Week, will know what his legislator was doing. So there's nothing deceptive about it in that matter. But nevertheless, it was the opposition was furious about it, of course.
Well, even some supporters and Democrats were concerned about it because they didn't want to vote for this seemingly hostile amendment, hoping that voters could parse through it all in the end. And the governor did offer some reassurances that he would back them at least, and he did by saying the ultimate end goal of this, I think, is provide that support.
And perhaps the most interesting speech today was from Representative Kim Hendren, the father of the sponsor of the bill and the amendment, Senator Jim Hendren, who he actually read emails he and his son had written to each other where he had told his son he didn't like what was happening, said, is it right to do wrong, to do right? And said he was going to vote against it unless his vote was absolutely needed.
And, a little paprika on this. Mr. Hendren Senator Hendren, 4 years ago, was among the most vociferous critics of the then private option.
Well, once you have 267,000 people covered by an insurance program, it's kind of hard to yank that away. It probably helps that Senator Hendren's uncle is now governor of Arkansas, but nonetheless, this was this was one of their arguments when it was passed originally, was if you create a government program, it is very, very hard to take away. And now that it's here, they acknowledged that this is the system we have now, and to take it away and replace it with what? We don't have anything at this moment. So that was the difficulty.
Yeah, Ernie, is it now institutionalized? Is it secure?
I think it is. I think it is secure. There is now I think the difference between now and 2013, when Senator Jim Hendren fiercely opposed creating the program and funding it, there is a fuller understanding, both by him, as he acknowledged, and many others, including many of their constituents, a fuller understanding of what Obamacare did, and particularly this is essentially half of Obamacare. This covers the half of the population, uninsured population, that the other half is not supposed to cover. But people understand now that it's not going to wreck the state budget, but help the state budget. And that was hard for people to understand back in 2013. Well, how can it be that we're going to start this program, which is going to cost state dollars in the future, and how is it going to help the state budget? Well, if you really analyze it and understood what all the aspects of the Affordable Care Act, you understand how it really does benefit the state, how budget-wise and fiscally wise it helps the state budget. So you have a fuller understanding of that now than you did then. And the other thing I think that's going to make a big difference is that the next time this rolls around, and it'll roll around every year now because we have a fiscal session or a regular session, and we budget all state agencies every year. It'll come up every single year. But the difference is that next year and thereafter, Barack Obama will not be president. And that's what all of this is about, is Barack Obama. And he will not be president. It will be Donald Trump's health care program or Hillary Clinton's health care program. Neither of them is going to substantially scrap it or change it, and neither will Congress. So without Obama there, I think the opposition and the dire necessity for many legislators to vote against it will be gone. Yeah. And I think it's secure for the end of the future.
Yeah. Jacob?
Well, I think one of the other major things that people like Senator Hendren, a choice they made ultimately was the numbers always look good for the state budget. There was some concern about per person costs going over, which they didn't. But the major concern was they've decided that if it saves the state money, they're going to forget about the federal debt part of it. And that's the big equation before, because even though it might be good for the state, it's because the federal government is spending more. And they've decided to ignore that for the time being.
Week had barely begun. We've got to move on. But week had barely begun before there was the announcement from the state that the superintendent of the Little Rock public school system, Baker Kurtis, had been basically fired. And that did not sit well with a great many elements in the community, and including some of the General Assembly. Jake?
Right. So, and this came with zero community input, which irritated a lot of people off the bat. And the situation with all this is the state has control of the Little Rock School District for about a year and a half or so because some of its schools were designated in academic distress. Baker Kurtis was someone who's not universally loved in Little Rock, but a lot of people did rally behind him, think he was doing a good job with the school system at Leeds. This decision by Commissioner Johnny Key came without warning, so to speak, to a lot of people. It caught them by surprise. They're bringing in Michael Poore from Bentonville, who embodies a lot of the anxieties and fear of a lot of the people in the district who are worried about a move to increase charter schools and potentially privatize the district in a piecemeal fashion. And so that Michael Poore guy, we don't know a lot about him yet, but his association with Bentonville and the Walton Family Foundation gives people in Little Rock, like the teachers union, a lot of pause.
But he does come from, before Bentonville, he was at a heavily urban Colorado school district that was in academic distress, that he got out of academic distress, not him alone, but helped get out of academic distress in 2 years. So it's not like he is a Bentonville native with no experience in the kind of district that Little Rock is.
Yeah.
Well, on the other hand, a lot of people say that about that Colorado district, one of the things he did was close down a lot of schools, which is a tough decision. That's something the state has floated for Little Rock as being a possibility. The district in Colorado had some Latino population, but Michael Poore has never been in a district with a heavily African-American population that is low income. So this would be a first for him in a lot of ways. He obviously knows this going into it, so he's up for this challenge in some way, at least.
What do we have here, Ernie, in your estimation? Is it a battle between, I hate to say conventional education, and Mr. Kurtis's profound reservations expressed often about the impact of charter schools on the Little Rock district? The DSEG numbers.
Well, when Baker Kurtis was appointed, the school district itself, the people in Little Rock were deeply divided over that. Basically they were divided because they didn't think the state should be taking over the public schools, where the community would have no more input into the schools. Baker Kurtis was admired. He'd been a member of the school board. People admired him, and I think he's now virtually universally admired in Little Rock, including the people who opposed that step in the first place, because he's done some amazing things with the school district that everybody acknowledges. The business community, the teachers union, which I think the expectation was that he could and would scrap the bargaining agreement, but he didn't, which might be one of his problems with the Walton Foundation and those people, but we don't know that. But I think the critical thing was he went with the State Board of Education and opposed the expansion of charter schools, saying that there's no evidence that they produced better education, at least with the kind of kids in this community that they would be educating, and that the Little Rock school deserved a chance. And this was a process of resegregating the Little Rock school. So I think that probably didn't sit well. I mean, they don't know. We don't know why they they fired him or let him go or didn't renew his contract or whatever. But I think everybody has a hunch that that's what the final straw was. We don't know.
We don't know that, and the statement from Senator Key, or Commissioner Key, was that it is time to move Little Rock into have a leader who has academic experience, whereas Becker Kuras has organizational experience. That's their stated reason.
Although the Commissioner of Education has no education experience.
We've got to get this in because it's unabashed good news, no question about it. Evidently, an historic low unemployment rate, Steve, for Arkansas.
4%, lowest ever, and 1% better than the national rate, which is 5%. So there's really no way to spin this badly. You can always say that the labor force has shrunk, but the truth is the labor force is growing. There's a lot more Arkansans working than there were before. So they're really, if you're looking for bad news in this story, you're going to have a tough time finding it. Employers are having a tough time finding employees. That's about it.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing about it is, since we've been discussing Obamacare, was that these numbers began to really fall precipitously, the unemployment numbers, exactly when the Affordable Care Act kicked in Arkansas. And Arkansas, alone among all the southern states, has implemented Obamacare, and it is the only, and it has the lowest unemployment rate in the South. All the other southern states to our south who rejected it are all doing worse. And if you look at the figures, and this month as well as others, there's been a pretty dramatic increase in healthcare jobs year after year, the last 3 years that it's been under effect. So that has to have had some kind of effect on it as well. But as you say, great news.
All right, we're out of news, or at least we're out of time anyway, guys. Thanks to you for coming in. As always, thanks to you for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Arkansas Week is made possible in part by the Arkansas Times, keeping you informed by covering people, events, and politics in Arkansas. By FM 89, KUAR in Little Rock, with in-depth news reporting, analysis, and discussion each weekday.